Our guest today is Kevin Booth, filmmaker, producer of America's Drug War, The Last White Hope. That's his first documentary, and now he's following that up with a second one. Now, the first one really kind of focused a lot on prohibition, about the corruption in our government with the DEA, the CEA, talked about Freeway Ricky Ross, who was considered to be the person who kind of started the crack epidemic, and he talked about the roots of the CIA and that. So that kind of focused on government corruption and the prohibition aspect. This one really focuses more on a personal story. This is American Drug War 2. It's really kind of talking about the effect on children. You know, the government always tries to sell us their latest program or their latest war on whatever by fear, and especially fear that is focused on protecting our children. So Kevin Booth really went to the heart of the issue with this documentary, and it's going to be a real eye-opener, I think, for a lot of people. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the government put so much energy into convincing us that the drug war was in place to save our children. And so I thought the only way to follow up the first American Drug War film was to show basically the effects that the drug war is truly having on children, which is exactly the opposite, of course, of what the government has been selling everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing when we've seen these recent breaking story about this family in Florida that had their child taken away while they were on vacation in Louisiana. CPS took it away because of issues of marijuana. This is a family, both the mother and father were engineers. They had a very functional family, 2 young sons. After having their sons in CPS for almost a year, they had put together a plan. They, quote unquote, kidnapped their sons, took them to Cuba. But unfortunately, the Cuban government did not give them asylum. Now the parents, who were functioning members of society, are now in prison, and their children are now gone in CPS. And the stories that you have about what happens to children once they get into foster care are just amazing in this documentary.
Well, you know, I mean, we decided to get into it. And to be honest with you, I didn't really get into the whole foster thing because of I'm making a film. I mean, my wife and I truly were looking to start a family. We couldn't have children of our own, and we decided to take the foster care route. There's 35,000 children in the foster care system here in Los Angeles County alone, 35,000 kids.
Wow.
And so we decided, like, you know, there's got to be a kid out there that we could help, and we could be a family to. And so we went through the program. We had to go through the whole indoctrination into it, and met a lot of nice people, and joined a really nice agency here in Hollywood. And but it's funny because, you know, I've heard, you know, being around Alex and all these stories, you always hear the horror stories about Child Protective Services and all this, and DCSF and all these government agencies. So it was interesting to kind of come in it through the other direction. And now we entered through the door as parents looking for kids. And so, and we really did enter into it as with, you know, parents with an open heart looking to build a family, and not, you know, some conspiracy-minded filmmaker. Well, you know, I was working on the movie over here that was separate from this, and before you know it, we have this little child in our house, and before you know it, we're being court-ordered to give her Adderall at 6 in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah, which is amphetamine. We're being court-ordered to give her barbiturates at night. We discovered that the home that she had just come from before us had 10 children living in basically just little tiny beds, all like crammed together. You know, the more kids they can fit into one house, the more money they make.
Wow.
And they would give all the children speed in the morning and tranquilizers at night. It's just a way to just keep the flow of the house going. And
I know that from personal experience. So I have friends who adopted through the foster care system. We've adopted 2 children. One was an open adoption, the other was a foreign adoption. And we were, quite frankly, we knew about what was going on with the foster care stuff and with CPS, and that's why we did a foreign adoption for the second one. But like I said, we have friends who have done that through the foster care system, and we know how that is, how the government mandates putting them on these very dangerous, very strong drugs. But of course, they're sold by big pharmaceutical companies.
And it's really just a way to the log jam because of the corruption in the system, and you know, we're dealing with laws that are 70 years old. You know, many of the laws regarding the foster system have been on the books now for 70 years. They're completely outdated. Everything is completely outdated and broken and just crumbling. And so they literally have to use drugs to just keep the log jam from getting worse. And so what you learn when you get in there is it's not really all these evil people working in the system. There's actually a lot of good people working in these things, but it's the laws and the system and everything is so broken and outdated and corrupt and,
That's right.
and being controlled by the wrong things that it's people are going, I can't believe that they allowed you to get away with this or make this movie, but it's not like anybody was trying to stop us. I mean, they're all working these jobs knowing, yeah, we do think the kids are on too many drugs, but we don't really have a choice. There's nothing
They
we
don't
can
make
do
the
about it.
policies. Like so many different systems, they don't make the policies. The people, whether it's the military, whether it's the schools, whether it's CPS, the people that are just implementing the policies, if they even think about it, they don't have the capability to really change these policies. They're just kind of cogs in the system. But it's
Absolutely.
a few people at the very top, people who are with the FDA, people who have made this alliance with the big pharmaceutical companies. They're making the policies. They're setting these policies. They've created the system. They've created the machine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and I found myself even, in private meetings with highly educated, highly intelligent doctors who I have respect for. And I'm sitting there going, look up who I am. I actually do documentaries about this topic. I travel around the country lecturing at universities about this very subject. And I'm telling you, this child in our home is not being served well by this medication. Now, the girl in the movie, Stephanie, has been returned to her mother. And since then, we've taken on another foster daughter who's basically taking another form. It's not Adderall, but it's close to Adderall. It's a very, very high dose. And you enter in like a whole other tricky aspect, and that is the child themselves actually likes the drugs. And when you start telling the child, like, hey, you're taking this bad drug, we need to get you off of it, they're like, oh, no, I like the drug. And then what do you do, right? And what is the future going to hold for the child that's already like loving this pill they get every morning and the way this pill makes them feel?
Kevin, I think what we're seeing here with CPS is really kind of a microcosm of the entire system that our government and those in the big pharmaceutical companies would like to see all of us on. It's not just that they want to get the children on. They would love to get the children on, but you see aspects of it even within the government school system, the overuse of drugs for ADHD, like Ritalin. But they want everybody on these big pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, we moved out to an area about 20 years ago that we didn't get any television reception. And it was really a blessing. We didn't realize it at the time. We really haven't watched television. We are active on the internet, we watch movies, we do other things, but we were surprised when we went back and looked at television when we'd be traveling or something, and just the number of pharmaceutical commercials that they never even had before, and how predominant they are. I mean, it's the majority of the commercials that are out there. They're really pushing this on society as a whole. It's not just the children in CPS. That's a microcosm of where they want to go.
And I've been told that if you want to see who are the biggest financiers of TV, the big sponsors, watch who is sponsoring the world news.
That's right.
Like go watch like the main evening news on NBC, CBS, and it is pharmaceutical ads. That's who are like the big donors, and that actually then even became trouble for me getting broadcast for the newer movie, because we're talking about being able to replace a whole drug cabinet, a whole medicine cabinet full of pills with one single plant that you can grow in your backyard. And that very simple message right there led to like us hitting brick walls with getting broadcasts on the second movie.
Well, I've seen something very interesting just the last couple of months actually on the CIA News Network, CNN. They have Sanjay Gupta, who's their doctor, just last week was saying that he's sorry he misled people about the efficacy and the danger of medical marijuana. And when you look at him on these programs,